Is AI going to stand on the heels of digital transformation? If there's one thing that I'll say about artificial intelligence, it's not AI anymore. It's just intelligence. When you're interacting with an intelligent being, you need to judge whatever you're taking in, and whatever advice you're getting, you have to think.
Ariel Assaraf, the founder and CEO of Coralogix.
We've grown from a handful of customers to tens and then hundreds and now thousands over the course of less than 6 years. Coralogix, the AI Center, provides observability and security for AI models, not just monitoring and fixing issues, but actually helping businesses make better decisions. Everything is going to be AI. As consumers, we're going to have to use our judgment a lot better. I'd say even to the extent of educating kids from early ages on how to interact with AI, how to interact with machines, so they're judgmental about the information.
Hello and welcome to Dinis Guarda YouTube podcast show, once again powered by businessabc.net, citiesabc.com, and wisdomia.org. We are here to continue profiling global players and the business leaders that are shifting and actually creating new opportunities for the way we deal with our business, our technologies, and especially a lot of things related with the AI massive revolution that is actually changing everything about humanity and businesses. One of the things we always like is to profile people, but as well to highlight how we can actually look from the experience to the achievement for the companies and what happens around that. So today I'm quite excited to welcome to our series a company and an entrepreneur that have been doing something quite amazing in the areas of AI and in streaming data platforms and a lot of different things in terms of how we're going to be seeing more and more the technology directions. So I welcome to our series Ariel Assaraf, the founder and CEO of Coralogix. And Ariel is an entrepreneur with a technology background of 15 years plus, helping companies, especially looking at the power of data and increasing how AI is taking over all of this. As the founder and CEO of Coralogix, a leading in-stream data platform for full observability for logs, metrics, tracing, and security data, this platform is actually growing quite significantly, and is one of the areas that I want to talk the growth and as well their solutions. This platform has over thousands or 2,000 plus global customers, including major global corporations, 500,000 applications monitored, and 3 million events processed. Coralogix was founded in 2014, graduated from Microsoft Accelerated in 2016 in Tel Aviv, and today is headquartered in California, United States. In December 2024, the company acquired Aphoria in a $50 million deal to boost AI system transparency. And the company has also recently launched its AI Center, offering real-time observability for AI applications. Before founding Coralogix, Ariel served in Israel Elite Intelligence Unit, and he developed data extraction platform and connected intelligence and tech units to create unique intelligence tools. Ariel afterwards joined Variant Systems, where he led automation, integration, and other different teams, and contributed in large-scale projects. So a lot of interesting things here, and some of the things that Ariel profile quite significant in terms of technologies from his bachelor in economics and mathematics, and as well has been recognized worldwide as an outstanding research and developing personality, as well a personality focus and a lot of the research, and as well holding patents in different areas of detecting anomalies and digital encode events. So that I could go here, but I'll keep here for here. Ariel, welcome to our series. I'm quite excited to talk about a lot of the things you're doing.
Thank you very much, Dinis. Thanks for having me.
So what you guys doing is, I would say, you're touching a lot of the most cutting edge part of data intelligence and artificial intelligence. But all of this starts with data, and it always starts with people. So let's start with you first. So from your experience from Israel to the world, tell us a bit about your background, and as well a bit of a space. I would like, probably the first question is, when was the first time you decided to go in this direction of data? And of course with economics and mathematics background, but as well, what did you see yourself on this role and what you achieve right now?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that really was eye-opening for me in the start of my career is that the intelligence unit and the Army gives you an opportunity when you're very young, when you're 18 and 19, to deal with, first of all, massive infrastructure and huge amounts of data. And that opportunity is something that cannot be replicated, I think, anywhere else. The ability to look at billions and tens of billions of events and have massive compute, but also big responsibility and life saving decisions based on that data. And so that was for me really eye opening, stepping out from practically high school into that was something that was, first of all, really exciting and challenging, but second of all, kind of opened my eyes into with the development of technology and everything that's going to come. At that point, cloud was still very young. We were looking at cloud computing, machine learning was then big, big data platforms just started rising. And it was really clear that the potential around how do we actually improve people's lives. And I don't think we even noticed how much our lives did improve and become easier. People use big data platforms today on the consumer side. When you shop, when you look for products, when you use ChatGPT, when you run research. And at that point in time, when it was still kind of early on in the big data revolution, it was clear to me that this is a role that I'd like to stay in. Afterwards, of course, joining Verint Systems, again, Homeland Security company, then again, looking at how data is not just used for comfort, but it's actually a life-saving and a safety creating asset that countries and companies have. And from there, I started noticing the challenges around data management when it comes to the observability of systems and the stability of systems. So all these great benefits that we're getting from technology, how do we keep them up and running? How do we provide a good experience to our customers? And it was a significant pain point at Verint where every project was huge with global clients. How do we make sure that we provide them with the best service? And this is where basically the inception of the Coralogix platform was basically created.
So, before I even go on, I have a lot of questions on your company. So through that education that you mentioned, I know that Israel has a quite technological education. And I think this is a quite element. Like you said, you have the army experience, but on your education as well, how did this part came? Because there's a sense of entrepreneurship that is unique. And as well, a sense of technology and mathematics that is, I think, unique as well. That's why Israel is leading so much things in the world in these areas of domains of technology.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of the people you ask in Israel won't even mention, just like I skipped it, won't even mention the academic background. The life experience that you're getting at such a young age, and then, starting immediately in pretty senior roles in big technology companies that are public companies that count on you because even though you're 21, you're coming with 3 or 4 years of experience in real life, massive data. The school system is obviously very good. The university system is obviously very good. And then you get more of a formal education. But I think one of the things that I gained there most was a lot of connections to like-minded people. A lot of the network here is really tight in Israel. It's a geographically small industry. And then from the amount of startups and funding and revenue perspective, it's a huge industry. And so you can walk side to side in Tel Aviv between the Coralogix office and Wiz and Monday and Sentinel One, and they're all around the same block. And everyone knows people from these companies. Everyone had either served with them or went to school with them. So that was, I think, a big part of that journey. And what's really nice about a tech ecosystem is that when the first generation that succeeded is investing back into the community, there's a lot of pay it forward type of mentality here, which is kind of similar to the Bay Area. A lot of the first startups to exit, whether it's Waze back in the day or Mellanox, a lot of these folks became investors themselves. A lot of these folks helped found startups. A lot of them volunteer in helping startups throughout a very large network of accelerators. And, when we started, the level of advice that I got and inside those accelerators, whether it's the VP of Corp Dev for Microsoft here in Israel, whether it's founders of exited companies, whether it's industry experts that came there, and they're all contributing from their time. And then, small angel investors, like one of our earlier investors that came in after the accelerator, the guy led Microsoft in Israel which is one of their largest R&D centers. I think the second largest after US. That type of a mentality, but then ecosystem is something that obviously helps build. And now it used to be called Startup Nation. Now I think there's a lot of scale up because that generation had grown, and there's a lot of bigger companies that are coming, and a lot of the multinational funds came into Israel and they saw good returns and obviously expanded here. So the opportunity is really good. I'd say probably at the level of the Bay Area, New York, and London.
No, that's quite impressive. That is one of the questions I have around this is, and I think I interviewed a couple of organizations from Israel, is that effectively the sense of entrepreneurship, the sense of cutting edge, and as well the sense of business is unique. So you design large scale testing and project deployments, and as well as a full member of Variant Israel Innovation Board, and they contributed to the technology evaluation and managed internal investments. So how did this shape your career and as well the creation of Coralogix?
Yeah, well, I think at Variant, the nature of the usage of data has been in a sense something that's, I think, has one of the highest impacts that you can get out of data, right? If it's homeland security, if it's preventing crime, if it's preventing terrorism, the idea of dealing with such data, and it's a lot about the mindset that you have when you're learning something or dealing with something. If you are coming to something with, I'd say, a high amount of seriousness, and you treat it with the kind of, you put your mind into it, knowing how impactful this is, it stays in your brain a lot more strong, and it actually creates your character and how you're dealing with data. And so I've learned to take data real seriously. And Variant, again, that opportunity given to me there, very young, to manage people, to meet with large scale clients, to make decisions and projects that are tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, is something that really shapes the personality of someone. As you grow yourself into the seat of an entrepreneur. How do you make decisions? How do you hire the right people? How do you manage people? How do you engage with customers? That obviously gave me a lot of that. And it was a great school, just because the nature of Variant and dealing with homeland security meant that a lot of the talented people there also came from the intelligence unit. And so the type of people that went into work there was people that I knew, many of them, and network, and the quality of professionals there was really high. And so obviously that contributed a lot to the skill set that I've developed, and obviously still developing as a company CEO.
So you created Coralogix in 2014, so 11 years ago. So the company grew to become a powerhouse worldwide in terms of data and in terms of log analytics. And as well, one of the things that I understood from your vision is that you rooted the belief of transformative power of data and technology. So tell us about the company, how you created a bit of history, and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so Coralogix is a very interesting story, actually. I'll start from the end of it and where we are today, and then I'll give a bit of background. So the company today is operating in the observability space. We do logs, metric traces, APM, real-time monitoring, SIM for security, MDR, so even managed response for security, and now Coralogix, the AI Center, provides observability and security for AI models. So a very wide platform serving thousands of customers worldwide in practically every country. So we got 8 operating regions. We got offices in 5 different countries, and we have employees in 30 different countries. It's a very global company. About 500 people work in Coralogix today. Significant growth over the past few years. And what we do differently is Coralogix analyzes everything in stream. So all the data is analyzed as it's on the fly going into the system. Then we write it to the customer's own storage, where we can run remote queries on the customer storage for complex event processing and insights that are driving business outcomes. So not just monitoring and, kind of fixing issues, but actually helping businesses make better decisions. That's a massive investment that we've done, whether it's the cardinality that we support, the volumes of data we support in our query engine. Now, we went through quite of a journey to get there. So we started a company at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. Initially, a more simple company that was aimed at creating an easier logging product than the current incumbents at the time. And it didn't work too well, because I think our space is one of the most crowded spaces, observability. If you don't have something really special going on, it's really hard to survive. And then for the first 3-4 years, we were kind of looking for a path. I wasn't initially the CEO, as one of the co-founders, and I led the product in the company. And then in the beginning of 2019, I became CEO, and we weren't in a great place at the time. So revenue wasn't great. We didn't have a lot of customers. I'd say revenue was sub $1 million. It's it's orders of magnitude above that today. But at the time, we were trying to think, how do we create something that's different enough, that's transformative enough for companies to even pay attention to what we do? Because there are so many great companies in the observability space. How do you even, get above that noise to provide companies with a solution that they aren't able to get today? And this is where we came up with Streama, our initial groundbreaking technology, actually, to do what we call stateful streaming. So to analyze data and transform data in stream is one thing, but how do you do long-term analytics on that data without storing the actual raw data? And we created an entire mechanism that we call Streama that only stores the state that it needs. It's sharded, it's very resilient, and then all the insights are extracted on the fly, including alerts and anomalies and models that we run on data. But then what happened is that some customers asked, well, what about the raw data? And again, we were looking for a path that will be completely different and value add to anything else in the market. So when we looked at our competitors, they all, first of all, store the data and then analyze it. We said, we don't want to store the data. Why won't we store the data? We don't want to own the customer's data. We know how valuable data is, and we know how valuable it is for our customers, or should be for them if they don't understand that yet. And so to generate such high value data like observability, which contains practically everything that happens in your business, and then send it to another vendor that stores it in his own format on his own servers, but then charges you a lease for every day you keep it, basically charges you for retention. We thought that doesn't make sense. We can't say on one hand how much we value data, and then on the other hand tell our customers, give us all your data. And so we decided to build an engine that will store the data on the customer's own storage in an open format that he can query outside of Coralogix, but then we can also query directly from Coralogix. And so it's analyzing in stream and querying from remote, whether it's logs, metrics, traces, ROM, security. Now, once we've done that, we've seen significant growth to the extent that we've grown from a handful of customers to tens and then hundreds and now thousands over the course of less than 6 years. During that journey, we've learned a lot of things. We learned how to validate an idea, what to ask, what not to ask. We've learned that many times startups tend to, and we did that too, tend to ask the wrong questions when they're validating an idea. Meaning, in a B2B market, it's a lot more like a chessboard than anything else. There's so many moving parts, and your competitors are not resting, and everyone are, trying to compete for the same accounts. How do you make sure that your idea is actually something that customers need? And so when we went out, we had to ask questions that led our customers to always give us validation of what we were already thinking. So we'd come to a customer and say, hey, would you pay for a system that gives you a simpler log analytics interface that's lighter and easier to use? And the amount of people that'll say no to that is very small. And then, would you like that system to automatically detect issues? Obviously, most people will say yes. And would you like it to be cheaper than what you have today? Yeah, of course. And so we thought, okay, we got this idea of a simple to use automatic anomaly detection and data clustering, lower cost alternative to the incumbents. When we started, we should be good. But then the reality is, you got to ask the customer, what is it that you have today that you can give up on? What does it take for you to replace your current solution? And are you willing to have two solutions, or does it have to replace the other one? What side of the business does that serve? Who are the stakeholders in your company that will make that type of decision? Because even though everyone said yes to our initial questions, when we met the market at that point in time, before we built Streama and Data Prime, which is the remote query, and before we had an actual key differentiator in the architecture and the business model and the technical aspect of the product, customers will say, what you guys have is nice, but I'm going to have a list of features that the incumbent has. And to migrate this off, this is a huge project for me. And I'm not going to pay both because it is already expensive as it is. And so we found ourselves kind of being a niche product in some small companies, but then for the most part, just non-existent in the market. And we learned a lot from that because, right, product development never ends. So now when we build products, we hope we have a much better approach towards what do we validate with customers? How do we make sure that we're building the right things, that we're solving the right problems? So that's kind of the journey that we went through from founding the company until today.
Well, congratulations, first of all. And it's, like you said, this is a very competitive environment. When you talk about data management, you're competing with the biggest players of Silicon Valley in the US.
Yep.
But you guys achieved with a company that is right now valuation over $1 billion plus. I'm sure it's not public information, but it's quite impressive what you guys achieved. So coming back to the product and how you look at data, and especially since 2015 to, well, your Series D in 2022, we have as well right now the emergence of AI. So not on the top of all the innovation that you guys build around data, and as well, especially managing data, like for instance, your platform, if you look at in a nutshell for people listening to us, is that you look at real-time streaming analytics of big companies and you create monitoring, visualization, and alerting capabilities without the burden of indexing. So it's quite technical, but I think this will be probably a more technical part for people listening to us. So from the work that you build on your product, what would be, for people listening to us that don't know so much about your business, the main, I would say, USPs of your platform? And as well, you touched that what made the success was the way you build a relationship with your clients, but as well was you are scaling data for governments, for institutions, for some of the biggest Fortune 500 companies, which is a massive responsibility and a lot of different areas. So explain a bit to, I think, of course, as broader as possible, how you build the product and these data pipelines, and as well your product platform.
Yeah. So high level, how do we create stream analysis and then querying from remote? That's kind of the key. So for in-stream analysis, Coralogix basically uses embedded DBs across Kafka streams. And then each service in Coralogix knows how to write the state that it needs from the data. So it won't require the raw data into that embedded DB and then check against that storage. We use a few algorithms that really compress the amount of data that we need to store and hash it out. So we can make big decisions with a very small memory footprint. And then our engine writes the data to the customer's own storage in a format that's A, open, B, available for us for direct queries with our query engine called Data Prime. What's special about Data Prime, it queries logs, metrics, traces from all at once. You can even join between different data types. So a lot of customers will look for a single pane of glass. This is a key differentiator of Coralogix. You can have all data types in a single dashboard and a single query and a single alert. So this is a true single pane of glass, not kind of stitched together products. From how we treat customers, I think from the get-go, and there's a funny story around it. When we were little and we started selling, we came into a big airline and they liked our product very much, but the bigger concerns were around our size. They said, it's a small company. How do we get the support that we need? How do we make sure that when we need you guys are there? Because we don't want to work with a small company that might be gone one day. And we said, you know what, guys, let us commit now to a 5-minute response time over chat 24/7. Now, at the time, we're 10 people in the company. So all of them are engineers except for all of them are developers except for me. How do you commit to such thing? And I basically said, I'm going to take this on myself. And I connected a chat interface into the app that's called Intercom. And whenever an issue came in, it would pop on my phone 24/7, meaning if I need to wake up in the middle of the night, I wake up in the middle of the night and answer the customer over chat. And I did that for a few months where I saw such great engagement with that client and others when they felt like there's someone across the line on the app side that can not just help them break fix, but build dashboards and best practices and so on. And then we started building our customer facing work that way, immediate and fast. We are today serving, like I said, thousands of customers, thousands of calls every week, and a response time that's under 20 seconds. So 20 seconds for human response time support. We allocate a technical account manager to all different customers and a commercial account manager. And we have a lot of kind of very strict policies about no surprise bills, very transparent and predictable pricing. And we stick to those things because we think that technology is an enabler for the business, but it has to come with the human aspect. How do we make sure that our customers, are enabled, feel comfortable with the system, are supported, and that we also build a strategic roadmap for them. And so as a company, we've developed what we call the observability maturity model, which is how do we take an organization from the first phase of having telemetry to the second phase of being able to solve problems faster, what we call engineering intelligence, to the third phase of what we call production intelligence, so monitoring the production as a whole, and to the fourth phase, which is actually extracting business level insights from observability and driving business outcome. Because observability data, unlike what people tend to think, is the highest volume, highest amount of dimensions, most real-time information that you generate. If you're an online business or a cloud-native business or a business that makes most of its business online, observability will cover a very, very large portion of your day-to-day. Like logs, metrics, and traces and RUM will give you a full picture of everything that's happening in your business. You just need to know how to extract that. And so the ability to do that with our query engine, with our enablement, and with our maturity model is something that helps companies actually drive revenue from observability, actually create better communication channels between the different departments. Because now everyone are using the same system, everyone are using the same language, and that opens up big opportunities for companies, not just to look at it and box it as a dev tool helping to solve problems, but actually looking at this data and valuing what data is, especially when you own it and you can do more than just monitoring. When it comes to AI and the work that we've done there, obviously, when we looked at the revolution starting, the initial take is, first of all, we're not that small at the time, and we want to wait and see if this is real, right? Because we've been through a couple revolutions that weren't as big as people tended to think. But then a year in, it was really clear that, okay, this thing is going to change everything. It's going to change every access we have to data. It's already done that for the consumer side. And we're now at this very interesting time where usually you'll get the cutting edge, or you used to get the cutting edge experience of technology and data access when you're home. When you're in the office, right? So you'd get a really good experience accessing, analyzing data in your B2B world as an engineer. But then you go home and you use very simple tools. We're now at a very interesting age of time where what you get as a consumer, when you look at ChatGPT or Anthropic or Claude, whatever that is actually way better than what you get in the office. You can conversate with data across the globe. You can ask to run research for you. You can do small agentic tasks. You can generate images. Then you go to the office, you got to write queries and build graphs and export them and use Excel sheets. That gap is something that we're positive that's going to close, because democratizing that data, which now we know is so valuable for the entire business, it doesn't make sense for just the engineers to use it. Having the ability to bring that to the entire organization, drive business outcome, drive excellence, create a common language, create automation, is something that's going to transform our space. It's going to transform BI. It's going to transform observability. It's going to transform cyber. And our timeline is not later than 2027. So in under 2 years, we believe that companies that wouldn't adjust to a complete different experience, it's going to be as close as we can to what you're getting today as a consumer, those companies will just not cease to exist. They're not going to be there and continue to serve people the same analytics interfaces that they did in 2020. It's just not going to work out. And knowing that, we made two decisions. A, we're going to move fast and break things. B, we're going to figure out what's the best talent in that space that we can bring to sit here with us in the office. And we went on a journey to look for that talent. And I think when we met the Aporia team, it was really apparent to us. Here's a team that's not kind of just hyped around AI. They've been there for 5-6 years around ML and AI, monitoring them, providing observability, dealing with data, dealing with the new models, building their own. And when we saw that team and their product, we felt like this will be a really powerful department in Coralogix that will be Coralogix AI. And this one, it's a massive investment that we're going to make over the next few years, both in, hardware, GPUs, et cetera, and people, so that we do two things. And we split it to two. One is observability and security for AI. So how do we make sure that you as a company, first of all, is aware of what AI is being used in your organization? Many organizations have no idea. There are internal tools, engineers call APIs and even host their own models to use them in their app to provide the customer a great experience, but the organization doesn't even know about it. And that poses huge risk because AI is not software. It's not either working or not. There's a gradient of, terrible outcomes that can happen that are not either yes or no. And the second bit is you have to be able to control it and be compliant with your customers, with their data, with their performance, etc. But the second bit, which is also very interesting, is how do we use AI now for observability and security? How do we make the SRE job, the security analyst, product manager's job a lot more strategic? And a lot of people tend to think about AI as something that's going to cancel jobs. The reality of every technology shift, it only empowered people. So, when cloud came in, it didn't kill the job of a system engineer or network engineer because now it's all managed in the cloud. It empowered them and turned them into platform engineers and DevOps engineers and network experts because now they're dealing with the higher part of the pyramid. Same's going to happen with AI. Engineers are going to be empowered now to build more, build faster, build better. But customer expectation is going to be so big. Customers are going to want us and others as companies to provide them something incredible, because if I can just go to, a base 44 or whatever applications out there that help you build apps using AI, it just asks the application to build something for me. If I can just do that, why would I ever buy anything from a vendor? The only answer is something that's completely different and unique and polished. And for that, the engineers need to level up. So we want to give them those tools, A, to do that securely and keep the performance and stability that they need, and B, automatically monitor and secure it so they can innovate fast, move fast without breaking things. That's kind of what's unique about, how we approach our customers and technology and what we see AI doing to the market.
So you touch a lot of things, and it's quite a lot of things to digest, and I want to touch one or two. So you acquired and I think was your biggest acquisition, Aporia. That is precisely a startup that has been focused on giving business tools to observe and secure their AI workloads. And you mentioned as well that, of course, you're launching a dedicated AI research center. So as you mentioned, AI right now is just putting on steroids everything that you're doing in data, but as well with the sophistication that becomes exciting and frightening at the same time, because you can actually have, first of all, much faster, at least quickly, intense gratification, even if it's a bit, I would say, hallucinogenic, and even in terms of B2B, and I'm talking not just about B2C. So from the work that you've been doing, from this kind of knowledge on data, and I'm going a bit further right now from your acquisition as well with Aporia, how do you see the AI business ecosystem is going to be? Because like you said, there's a lot of new jobs being created. There's a lot of disruption as well. But one of my impressions, and you were working with governments and institutions, is that there's a huge, first of all, there's still a huge, I use this as an example. It's a big question, but I want to touch it. I was working with a major global company, and mostly they want to have an AI solution. And I started asking questions, okay, how are you managing your data and things like that? And I realized they didn't have a clue. So I think you have the basics of the foundations of data and how to manage data properly. But of course, with AI, this is going to be just amplified by millions. So how do you see this challenge, especially for business, to understand the core foundations, and as well going from these core foundations to optimize their business? Because like you said, I think a lot of the business are still not using even their basic data. And of course, you're dealing with the most sophisticated of the business. But when you go to society in general, SMEs and even big scale companies are still struggling to get the digital transformation data and AI, I would say, accessibility.
Yeah, you're touching on a very big question. Is AI going to stand on the heels of digital transformation? Or is AI a transformation in its own that contains digital transformation? Now, our belief is that it's sort of a mix of both. Companies that try to do a full digital transformation, in my world, it manifests itself as data collection and data analysis, had challenges doing so because you needed to understand the data. You need to understand structure. You need to know how to query. You need to know how to build. You wanted to move or create applications. You need to have the right developers and the right designers and the right product managers. And so all that knowledge that you needed kind of held you back. So now with AI, what does it mean about building the right data infrastructure? What does it mean about empowering your engineers that you don't need the best talent in the world anymore to do something that's good enough for your business? And so I think what that's gonna do is basically re-accelerate digital transformation, bring everyone to the start line, and then companies that will utilize AI in a better, more efficient way that they can actually expose to their customers as value will survive, and the rest will just disappear, just like any other revolution. By the way, even smaller revolutions like cloud computing, companies that didn't do the adjustment to cloud, a lot of them are struggling. I'd say AI is a lot more like the internet revolution than anything else. And we can't even think of companies that didn't adjust to internet because they're not here for decades now. Maybe, Kodak or Blockbuster is the only examples that come to mind. I'd say AI is bigger than that. And there are a lot of massive companies around us that we're not even realizing that are just not going to exist in 5 years because they're going to be completely different. Now, the opportunity, to your point about companies that are still struggling to have the data infra, use the data they have, the opportunity for them to close that gap much, much faster and with a lot less knowledge is what's going to open up that door to new companies that will serve those clients of the ones that wouldn't adjust to this new world.
Yeah, and I think you touched the most important thing is that it's really going to be an ecosystem thriving. And I think, like you mentioned, when there's so much innovation, and you touched that in your answer previously, that we're going to have a lot of new companies, a lot of new jobs, but at the same time, we're going to have a massive disruption. And I think it's going to be just bigger. So coming back to, and I know that I passed the time, so I want to be respectful of your time. So more 2 questions if you have time. So the first one is, let's look at AI transparency and AI data scalability and AI data transparency, because these are, for me, 2 of the biggest questions that we have to answer. And especially bear in mind that you guys are dealing with so much governmental data, geopolitics, sensibilities. How do you look at point 1, transparency, point 2, the areas around the ethics of managing these amounts of data?
Yeah. So AI transparency, it's almost an oxymoron mentioning AI and transparency together, right? Because if there's one thing that's very consistent about AI is that it's not consistent. It is not deterministic. How do you make something transparent if that something is completely unpredictable? And this is where the power of observability comes in. Because if I have something that's completely a wild card, the only thing that I can do is to document it. I cannot predict, right? I can document. I when I studied economics, I had this great lecturer who's kind of a world expert in government economics. And he said, economics had developed so much over the past 100 years that we're now not able to predict what's going to happen in the future, but we're at a point where we can at least explain what happened in the past. AI is so unpredictable. It's developing and moving so fast that the best that we can aspire for is A, to add guardrails that will protect us from mistakes that will be catastrophic for our business and slow down adoption, and B, be able to audit and document and store all the AI interactions so we can learn from it and we can have the evidence that we need to actually, when we encounter an issue. So from a transparency perspective, I think that's something critical. It's really hard, and companies that wouldn't embrace the nature of non-deterministic software, or it's not even software, but non-deterministic character in what you're serving to your customer. Companies that will try to tame it to become deterministic, to become compliant without looking at guardrails, but adding a bunch of, shadow prompts and so on. Those companies will slow down to the extent that they'll just become irrelevant very quick. And so this is why when we're looking at it, the conversation we're having with customers is, again, AI is not software, and you got to rethink how you're doing this, and you got to rethink how you communicate that to your customers. So when we serve an AI feature to a customer, for instance, natural language queries, we say to them, guys, it may run the same query completely differently. We got to focus on the outcome, and we'll monitor and we'll see if it's not giving. You got to give us feedback so we can improve the model. But if we try to focus on it giving the exact same response every time, we just built, a rule engine. We didn't build an AI model. When it comes to safety, I think there's two sides to it. One is the safety of the organization that's serving the model, and one is the safety of the consumer. So the safety of the company that's serving the model is, how do I prevent data leakage? How do I prevent breaking policies and compliances? How do I prevent my, whatever chatbot or agent I'm exposing to be a sexist or, misogynist and so on and so forth? Those are big business risks and brand risks. And, you definitely don't want to go there if you're a big organization. But there's also a risk for the user. What about bad financial advice? What about bad health advice? How do we make sure that we as consumers are able to protect from that? And it's going to require both, right? So there's one thing that we can help as Coralogix, which is the guardrails, the observability, the security, preventing data leakage, and so on. And obviously documenting the data and having audit. But consumers are going to have to start treating software like they're treating human beings, which is very, if there's one thing that I'll say about artificial intelligence, it's not artificial at all. It is intelligence. People keep calling it AI. It's not AI anymore. It's just intelligence. And when you're interacting with an intelligent being, you need to be, you need to judge whatever you're taking in, and whatever advice you're getting, you have to think. And it's going to be more and more difficult, right? Because it's funny, but today, a lot of the times you'll get an answer from ChatGPT and validate it over Google. With time, there's not going to be anything that's deterministic. Everything is going to be AI. So what is truth and what's not? And we're, as consumers, we're going to have to use our judgment a lot better. I'd say even to the extent of educating kids from early ages on how to interact with AI, how to interact with machines. So they're judgmental about the information that they're taking in, and they do not put themselves in risks. So from a transparency, there's limitations, and we cover them with documenting and auditing. And from a safety, it's two-sided. It's how does the organization keep itself safe? But then it's a shared responsibility with the consumer because it's completely non-deterministic.
Well, I subscribe completely, and I think you put it fantastically, because it's kind of the challenge is how we get this new intelligence cooperating with our own intelligence. So last question, and being respectful of your time, although there's a lot of questions here that you open for probably a second take. So you are right now in this crossover where you have a fantastic ecosystem, and as well you build a fantastic product. And now I see with your new acquisition, and as well all the focus in AI, you're bringing the data to a much bigger capacity of bringing this intelligence additional. So how do you see the future of your own company and what you just said before in terms of product and in terms of ecosystems of business? Because I think what I feel, if you look at the OpenAI and even Copilot, which are leading probably the AI battle, at least for now, because I just saw a report that's around 15,000 generative AI tools. So definitely, like you said, probably like the beginning of the internet, a huge 90% of them probably disappear. But in your case, you have this ecosystem, and what I feel from my experience in business is the success is the ecosystem, and the product becomes the element to serve the ecosystem. So how you see this part on your own business, on Coralogix, and as well with your size, because you have clients and capacity, but as well right now is how we bring this real to a lot of business around the world.
Yeah, I would look at Coralogix as the future of Coralogix as a business decision-making tool for the entire organization. Think of what ChatGPT does to the known internet, Coralogix will do to your organization. So questions won't be anymore around, like, users will come to observability systems today and ask, where are the errors in my system? What servers are lagging? Where's the high latency? Those are very specific technical questions. What about if I could ask the system, which one of my services is causing me to lose the highest amount of revenue? Or what part of my application is causing customers the highest amount of frustration? Then connecting signals from the real-time monitoring, how users interact with your software, to the latencies that they're getting, to the machines that serve them, to the CRM and how much these customers are paying me, to the support ticket that they're opening, to the company goals that I have, and giving you one answer that's saying the part in your banking app that's causing you the highest amount of revenue loss is the currency exchange. because it is slow. Customers are trending in the middle, and your customers that move to competitor mentioned it the most times when they open up support tickets. That component might be causing frustration because the infrastructure serving it is reaching high CPU a lot of the times, where we see then latency on the API level and then front-end errors that the users get. Now, I asked a question. We're giving the answer from a technical perspective, but we're serving the business. We're helping prioritizing. We're connecting it to revenue. We're connecting it to customer experience. And this is where customers will run research on Coralogix and not just solve issues. And I think that's a shift that most observability platforms are going to have to do or just cease to exist. I think we have a big advantage because in-stream analysis, customer owns the data, readable format, semantic layer that holds all the keys or cardinality relationships between them, so we can actually address data in a natural language way, a declarative language, data prime, which enables translating SQL or human language to SQL. So those are big advantages that we worked on for very long, and obviously the talent that we have here around AI. But all of the companies in our space are going to have to try to shift towards that.
It's a fantastic way, and I will just repeat what you said. An AI business decision maker for an organization. I think it's really a fantastic motto, and I think we need that because I think the 15,000 generative AI tools are just looking confusion. And actually, one thing I realized is that people are paying a fortune for a lot of these tools because it seems like small money, but you put them all together and it becomes a massive distraction and the small things destroy. So, well, first of all, congratulations. It's really impressive what you guys achieved. And I'm sure you're going to be just the beginning. I think for people listening to us, we'll put all the links and all the different highlights. I know that is a more technical, but we actually we're going to take some of the highlights because you touch impressive touches around the business opportunities, the jobs, the challenges as well. And well, I just want to wish you all the best for your achievements and as well for continuation of the product and then really focus on solving big problems that are more important than ever. And I hope this is the first of probably a second one that I want to go more technical in a lot of the things we discuss. Thank you so much for being here.